Welcome to the Adaptive Collaborative Podcast, connecting the adaptive communities. Hosted by James Norris, founder of Handy Capable Fitness, and Melissa DeChellis, founder of Adaptively Abled Amputees and Adaptively Abled Fitness.
Thanks everybody for joining. So welcome to episode 12 of the Adaptive Collaborative Podcast. We are so excited because we have the man behind all the programs of Challenge Athlete Foundation, Mr. Travis Ricks. Travis is an above-the-knee amputee. He's a seated volleyball player. He is also a triathlete. And again, he's director of programs for challenged athletes. If any of you have ever wanted to apply for a grant for challenged athletes, please save your questions. We're leaving time for a Q&A at the end of the session. Travis is the person to ask your questions to. So without further ado, Travis, would you mind introducing yourself and sharing a little bit about yourself? Give us your elevator pitch because we have plenty of questions to dig into the rest of your story to follow.
All right. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. My name is Travis Ricks, and I've been an amputee since 2003, so almost just over 17 years now. And I had a it's rare, but it's fairly common in teenagers, cancer called osteosarcoma, which left a tumor in my knee, and I did my best to try to keep my leg and salvage the limb. Had a knee replacement. That did well for about 4 years, and then in my early 20s, I got a staph infection in the knee. 16 staph infections later, I had to make the decision to either close up the leg and never bend my knee again, or to amputate and move on with my life. And I chose amputation thinking that my career as an athlete was over, and little did I know that was not the truth. And I got introduced to the organization I work for now, Challenge Athletes Foundation, and it's been a crazy, fun, wild ride ever since.
Wow. So you were quite the athlete growing up. What sports did you participate in, and what life lessons do you think participation in sports taught you? And ultimately, did they help in your battle against cancer, your recovery from your above-the-knee amputation, and finding your new normal?
Yeah, I think sports was a huge part of my ability to get through what I went through. I was a baseball player my whole life growing up. I was very active as a kid. I mean, I was climbing everything I could think of growing up in Arizona. And then I moved out to San Diego when I was 10. And yeah, sports was life, and it wasn't until high school that I started trying other sports. I was a football player. I played volleyball in high school. And then my most important sport, I was a wrestler through my high school career. And that's what everybody knew me as, the captain of the wrestling team. And I had a huge college-bound career ahead of me when it came to wrestling that kind of got cut short. But team sports just showed me a lot about just leaning on others and persevering and being able to be strong for the people around you. And I think that's kind of what I learned and harnessed when I was going through my situation, because a lot of it was about being strong for the people around me, not necessarily dwelling on what was happening to me. And that support system, whether it was my teammates and my friends from high school or my family, were a big part of my ability to get through and recover from not only the cancer, but also the amputation as well. Now,
I have a question. When you sustained the injury, the night that you sustained the injury, it was during a football game. I'm curious to know, did you know at the time that this was a severe injury, or were you thinking to yourself, you know what, I'm going to go over to the sidelines, I'm going to get taped up, and we're going to jump right back into this, and we're going to continue?
Yeah, it was an interesting situation. A lot of that, I won't get too deep into it, but a lot of that time was really crazy time in my life. My mom, who's an amazing woman today, she's sober, but at the time she was dealing with some drug addiction stuff and was going through rehab, and I was living at a friend's house. So I really didn't have any parents in my life, but I started having a limp. And I was going to practices and trying to figure out what was going on, because it didn't hurt, but I couldn't really walk straight. And the doctor that I saw actually said, "Oh, you probably just sprained your knee, put some ice on it." So I'm playing for the next 4 weeks as the starting tailback of the team, and have this limp. I'm icing it. I'm doing everything I can, and I'm playing. And then in the 6th game of the season, I was in the 2nd play of the game, my first play in. I got tackled, and my knee basically went straight, and I realized right then and there, I can't bend my knee. So I crawled off the field, Army style. My mom, who happened to be out of rehab kind of watching my game, was there, came running down to the field, and took me directly to the hospital where we got blood work and x-rays done to find out that I had a grapefruit-sized tumor in my knee.
Wow. So fast forward, you battle and beat cancer. And then you move on with amputation. For you, which do you feel is a larger challenge in your life, and why?
I think the decision to make the amputation was the harder challenge, because I thought everything was over. I thought I was giving up part of myself. With the cancer, and for me, I was a teenager. I was 17. All I cared about was getting out of the hospital, being able to go to that party on Saturday night, right? Even though I'm getting chemotherapy injected into me, I have no hair. But my friends, I had so many people around me. I had so many friends there. And so the cancer thing was more just about like getting out of the hospital. I wasn't worried about dying, even though they said I had a 50% chance of living. I was stage 4 cancer. But being a teenager, I didn't know what that meant. I just knew it was an inconvenience to my life. But by the time I'm 23 and I have the chance to really understand a little bit more, the amputation was the hardest part. And I think it was just because I didn't know what was next, and I thought everything was being taken away from me. So, but I knew that I couldn't keep living in the hospital. So the decision really was just to move forward instead of being in that like weird place where I was in and out of the hospital rooms.
Now that leads me into this next question, and it kind of fits in perfectly. After you went forth with the amputation, who, if anyone, was your mentor, and what valuable lessons did you learn from him or her?
Yeah, I would say that the person that I first met was an amputee. He was doing my job now and at CAF. And I actually, my mom looked him up online, found his website. His name's John Mabry, and he had a website called onefootloose.com. And my mom somehow found that on the internet and called him up. And he had just happened to move to San Diego a year before. His website was based out of Texas, and my mom, I don't know how she connected this guy, and then found out he lived a block and a half away from where I was living right then. Wow. At the time, though, I wouldn't talk to the guy. I did not want to have friends that were, disabled. I didn't want to have anybody that was an amputation that would, I just didn't need pity. I didn't need any. I've got my own friends. I've got my own life. This doesn't change anything. And then he was super persistent. And when he finally got me on the phone, he said, "Hey, let's meet up." And he took me to a support group where everybody was probably, I'd say, at least 40 years older than us. And not to say that was, we actually learned a lot from the people there, but he and I were less than a year apart from each other. It would just happen to be a really like a match, right? Because he was a below the knee amputee, and at the time I didn't know much about the difference between the two, AK, BK. But he did a little juke move in the parking lot when he went to run back for his keys, trying to show off to me. And I'm sitting there going, well, this guy can do that, and he can be that active. I can too. And he was really a motivating factor for me just because he was somebody like me that was there for me. So I give him a lot of credit for being my mentor in the early days.
So during your recovery, in an interview that I was privy to listen to, I heard you say something that I completely agree with. You said that thriving and surviving are two different things. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, I went through a lot of training through the Amputee Coalition, to be a peer visitor. And then for me, that wasn't enough. I really wanted to train other people to be a peer visitor. So I went through their week-long training. Gosh, I don't even know how long ago it was, but I was in DC for a week, and I learned to be the trainer. And in that was one of the things that really stuck with me, right? Thriving and surviving are way different things. And I've always used that in my interactions with other amputees, because you'll meet some people that are like, I'm doing okay, this isn't a problem, and they're just surviving. I had an amputation, I'm getting through life, and it is what it is. And then you got those people that are surviving, that are thriving. I mean, that are out there going out and being active and doing things with their children and just living life with this mindset that the amputation isn't, the biggest thing in front of them. Everything else is still there. They have to go and do it. And being an amputee, it's just part of that life. And they put it aside. They don't make that the number one thing about them. And so, and I've met a lot of people like that. Obviously, working for Challenge Athletes Foundation, people doing sports usually are people that are thriving. I'm not saying that's always the case, but so I've been surrounded by a lot of amazing people that are thriving and really giving back to the community. And in my opinion, that's what thriving is that you've taken care of yourself to the point that you can give back.
So I'm going to circle back real quick, and I'm going to interject with a question. So you said initially you didn't want to be part of the adaptive community. For you, what was that switch? What was that moment where you started to embrace the community and then take steps to becoming a leader within it?
I think it was meeting John. He got me volunteering at CAF. And, when I started to see that not every amputee, you get this mindset before you become an amputee about what an amputee is, right? You think it's somebody that's in a wheelchair, like Lieutenant Dan from Forrest Gump, right? Is like this guy who's just down on himself and just doesn't have a life and his stuff together. And I didn't want to be like that. And I was super against just kind of accepting it all in the beginning. And when I started meeting more people that were like me, that had, these athletic goals and mindsets and endeavors that they wanted to do, I started realizing that this is a really awesome community. And it wasn't just they needed to be like me. It was how accepting everybody was, how everybody wanted to be there for each other, and they wanted to help support you do better and do whatever you want. And knowing that made me really want to be that person for other people. And it kind of led me into what I do now. It makes me want to give that opportunity to others, whether they were born congenital, with their disability, or they acquired it through trauma at some point in life. I know that a life of giving to others really is that thriving life, and it makes you really feel better about yourself and whole. And so, yeah, I think that's kind of the turning point for me, was really getting to know more people that were in the same interest within the disability community.
You kind of touched on it a little bit there, a little bit, excuse me. But how did you get involved with adaptive sports, and what was your first experience? What was your first activity that you did?
So I would have to say that obviously volunteering at CAF, you especially at the time, everybody was a triathlete, right? So I will give some credit to Sarah Reinertson for being one of those mentors as well, because she worked at the organization. I was a volunteer on the computer in the front answering emails, and I'd hear all these stories about Ironman and triathlon. And so I got out there and I started doing all that stuff because that's what they were doing. And she motivated me because she was working on her first Kona run. And so I went out and I tried to do a couple triathlon classes and spin classes, and I wasn't ready at the time. I was still just learning how to run and learning how to get through things. So it was a weird, interesting route for me to get to the sports I ended up doing, but I wanted to try everything. I mean, I did rock climbing clinics, I did swim clinics, I did triathlon run clinics. These were things I never did before, and I was hungry. I was hungry for learning, and I went out in 2008. I finally wanted to make a run for the Paralympics, and I was going to be this track athlete. And like a lot of newly disabled people, they think that you can just show up for the Paralympics. And so after doing a couple weeks of just running on the track and getting things dialed in, I was going to show up to this event called the Endeavor Games in Oklahoma City. And I ran the 100-meter, found out I was really slow, and was trying to figure out, well, what do I do now? And I walked into the gym there, and they were playing a sport called sitting volleyball. And I had played volleyball in high school, so I was like, hey, can I try? And so I sat down on the floor, and the team that I joined Happened to win gold. It happened to have the coach from the head of the program on it. And next thing you know, I'm being invited. So it was a weird road of all these different things to get me to the things I did. And I eventually went back to triathlon and had a national championship, raced competitively for 7 years. But there's a lot of learning along the way.
Hey, there's no straight path to success.
No.
So.
Absolutely
Very curvy
not.
for me.
So we can't go through a podcast during COVID without asking individuals how COVID has impacted them. So COVID has definitely impacted the adaptive community. How have you stayed active, and what advice can you give to other adaptive athletes to get creative and stay active in their home or while the weather's still nice outside?
Yeah, this whole thing has just been, I mean, it's new for everybody, but the honesty of it is we're adaptive athletes, and we adapt to whatever has been given to us. A lot of us have had to adapt to a lot worse. So you figure it out. But we at CAF, we try to figure out a lot to help the community. One of the things we did is put together a virtual events page that shows all these different things that are happening through the groups that we're associated with. Like Move United has a ton of stuff going on. Dare to Try has a ton of stuff going on. We've done some of our own virtual things with some of our athletes, like yoga, morning workouts. We actually put together a really great wheelchair basketball virtual training that was all done during the time of COVID. So we got some of the top wheelchair basketball players in the U.S. to be a part of it, to give some tips on workouts, give tips on training on their own. And it was all done on iPhones. It was all done in their own homes. And so we're pivoting in that way. We've been able to, I've personally been able to get out and enjoy the Southern California weather by riding my bike every weekend, which has been great. I do have to dust off that running leg. It's been calling my name, but I'm hoping when the weather gets a little better, I'll do that.
And you also started that Challenge Athletes has an ongoing community challenge. I think this is a perfect opportunity for you to let us know a little bit about that and how we could get involved.
Yeah. So normally, one of the greatest things about working at CAF, the thing that hooked me with the organization was an event called the San Diego Triathlon Challenge. And if you haven't been, you should put it on your calendar to get out to someday. It's a triathlon, but we actually call it a community weekend now, because it started out with one day. We raised money for the one guy in the very beginning, and that was 26 years ago. And it has turned into 4 days of, family parent panel night. We do clinics throughout the weekend. We have a whole bunch of really awesome stuff. Like we have this ride-in from our $1 Million Challenge ride, which is a fundraiser. We have surf clinics and open water clinics for our kids. And then we do an awards night. And then the last day is a big triathlon / multi-sport event where people can do it. And it raises all the funds for our grant program. And unfortunately, this year we couldn't do it in person. So we pivoted a little bit. We decided to do what we're calling the CAF Community Challenge, and it's presented by Vega, one of our sponsors. That's a vegan, plant-based nutrition company, and they're amazing. They helped step up to help us put this on. And really what it is just about getting people out there to challenge themselves, do a bunch of miles to help get ourselves to 1 million miles. And then we're trying to raise over $2 million by putting on a platform where people can go out, share it with other people, Facebook pages, that kind of thing. And we're hoping that this will give us the funds that we need to be able to match the grants that come in 2021. And that being said, our grant application is opening up on October 1st. We moved it back a month, hoping that would give people a little bit more time to figure out what their 2021 looks like. And, we know that there's going to be a big need, despite what was happening this year with the fundraising efforts being lower because of COVID-19. We really want the support behind this so we could try to make sure we fulfill those grants.
And since we already started on the topic of the grants, I think this is the perfect segue for you to elaborate on the different programs that Challenge Athletes promotes, and especially the grant cycle, the different classifications of grants that athletes could apply for. And also, since we have some wounded warriors in the room and that will be listening, the different grant programs that are available to the veteran and first responder populations.
Yeah, no, it's been my pleasure. We are actually going to do some really cool fireside chats with some of our departments or some of our areas of our programs department leading into the community challenge. So take a look at that calendar, because you're going to get to meet some of the people that run these parts of the department. But number one is our grants. Everybody knows our grant program. So I'm going to get to that last, because there's a whole bunch of areas that we can share. But we have a community outreach program that does, mentorship. It gets people out in the community to talk about what we do, who challenge athletes are, what the adaptive community is like. We talk to schools, corporate companies, that kind of thing. We have a high school adaptive sports program, which we started here in California. We're hoping to grow a little bit bigger throughout the United States. But it's encouraging a lot of our athletes who are at the high school age and the junior high age to know that they are eligible to join their high school sports team, that it isn't something that actually excludes them, and they have to make adaptations to that by law. And we've come up with some great learning tools through that to teach coaches, parents, administrators, and the athletes themselves what they can do and how they can join their teams. Working on more. We've had some great people involved in that. We have our cycling program. Our cycling program this year went virtual. We've already got a ton of people, 150 athletes in that, doing some virtual training with some of our great challenge athletes. Jamie Brown, who's one of the top triathletes in the world. You've got Carlos Moleda, who is a veteran, Navy SEAL, and he is a 5-time Ironman world champion. And then Steve Peace, who's also a veteran, who is one of our Paralympic athletes, also on there. So they're teaching classes. They're helping people cycle. It's a really cool opportunity to get involved. We have our camps and clinics, which we can't do right now, but we did the wheelchair basketball program. But one of the great things about our camps and clinics, we do our OSER running and mobility clinics. If any of you have ever been to those, it's where I first learned how to use my running leg and how to actually move better in the leg that I'm in. So I can't wait to get back to those, because that's where I meet some of my favorite people.
That's why I met you, Travis.
Yeah, that is. And I love those. They're great. They're fun. Working with OSA right now to put on some virtual stuff so people can work on some of their mobility at home. So that'll be coming out in the next couple weeks. And then grants. Grants program also incorporates our Operation Rebound program, which is for veterans and first responders. And, that one's ongoing. That's year-round. You can apply for that anytime. So if you have any needs through that, you just reach out to Nico Marcolongo through our Operation Rebound program. We have some other stuff that we do within our other grant program, which is our year-round grant program through CAF. Our annual grant program, which is an annual application process. We give the grants out at the beginning of the year in late March, which is the end of our fiscal year. And that grant program is used for anything from training and travel competition expenses to adaptive equipment, as well as our OSER grant, which helps get any kind of running prosthetics or any of their sports prosthetics that they have. OSER is a global partner of ours, and they're our prosthetics partners. So we use solely OSER products, and they've been a phenomenal partner for over 25 years. And so through those grant programs, you're able to apply for whatever you want to be active. And it's where I got my first running leg. It's the thing that got me on my track to being a triathlete. Who would have thought? I swim like a rock, just going to point that out. And, just being a sitting volleyball player, I've been able to travel all around the world, all around the United States to do sports because of this grant program. And I know others have too. And we give a lot of equipment and funding out to get people active every year. So take advantage of it. It's out there for you guys.
Well,
So I have a question about the equipment, because I am constantly asked what types of equipment are covered. Could you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Yeah, you'll find in the actual application, we have done a better job. I have a great team that works on that, and they have really thought of everything, including that question. And so what they do is they have a really great drop-down menu that has everything on there equipment-wise that we can help out with through a vendor. We also have the ability for people to apply for funding towards equipment if it's not on there. Now, one of the things I will point out is a lot of people think you can come in and get a boat or some large expense like that, and that's really not the case. This is a needs-based application, which means we want to help those people with financial need first. But that doesn't mean they're the only people that get a grant. We take in a lot of things into consideration, like your living situation, your story, We have a lot of people that are part of the organization that do a lot of fundraising for us. And so we look at everything, but we do look at need first. We also look at, kids under 18, first time applicants, those kind of things. And we take everything into consideration. Everything gets a point, and it goes into this really awesome scale that we look at. And then at the very end, we look at how many people applied, how much money we have, and we try to give out what we can. We also try to give about 10% international. But when it comes to equipment, really apply for what you need. It doesn't have to be adaptive equipment. If you want a bike that's a regular bike and you can ride it, apply for a bike. We have a lot of sponsors that we get through the years that help us out with discounts. Right now we've got Canyon Bikes as a sponsor, so we try to go through them. But yeah, I mean, it really is, sky's the limit as long as it's equipment to keep you active. And that goes for every level of activity. Whether you want to go ride with your grandkids or your spouse, or you want to be a competitive triathlete in the Paralympics, we're here for you.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for the work that you do. I mean, it's been amazing to see, and you guys are some true pioneers. But this leads me into the next question. Here at the Adaptive Collaborative, we have a staple question, and it's our 3 G's, we like to call it: grace, gratitude, and grit. So I'm curious to know, when you hear those 3 words, what do they mean to you in particular?
Yeah, this was the one I was thinking about the most here. All right. So I think grace is really how you hold yourself, despite the situations that get put in front of you. I think that having grace, especially, in the disability community, we get asked a lot of questions. And, I've had those times where you just don't want to hear it, but you represent a larger community. You represent more than yourself. And so having grace in your responses and how you hold yourself in the community and to the community that is not adaptive is extremely important. So that's my idea of what grace is. I think, grit is just digging in and being tough, man. And I think we all have it. If you've dealt with any kind of disability in your life, you've had any hard times, grit is how you overcome it. You really just dig in deep. You come out the other side and you become a better person for it. And you can be a trailblazer for those who are in the situation that you used to be in. So, and then what was the third one?
Gratitude.
Gratitude. This is, I think, the most important one. I think gratitude is just, it's saying thank you and being thankful for the people in the community around you. We don't do this alone. It takes a village. It takes a community. A lot of times our families sacrifice watching us go through the things we've been through. And, there are people that we sometimes forget to say thank you to. And I think it's having gratitude for their sacrifices for you. It's also having gratitude for the community that helps lift you up when you're down, and for those who mentored you in the early days. And I think gratitude is a really important thing because it's ongoing. There's always people that you can say thank you to, and there's a large community of people out there that help you get through the hard times. So
to follow up on gratitude, who's been your personal mentor? And what lessons have you learned from them?
Well, I have 2 people, I would say. My mom is definitely one of them. I know I said early on that she went through some stuff when I was in high school. She was only 18 years older than me when I was born. And sometimes I always tell people I did a good job raising her. And but I learned a lot from her in life, sometimes what not to do. But I also learned that later in life, she did a phenomenal job of turning her life around, and that people get second chances. And she just showed me a lot just by being there for me. I mean, she slept at my hospital bed every night when I was going through my cancer, and she gave up a lot of herself for me. And that's why I tell people if I had to take my leg back, but it meant my mom going through back to that life, I will stay an amputee for the rest of my life. And the other person is my high school wrestling coach. He was like a dad to me growing up. He taught me a lot about right and wrong and just how to be a leader. And he's still teaching me today. I'm still in my life today. And I just retired from coaching, and I just retired from playing sitting volleyball professionally. And it's been nice having him to lean on and just know what's next. And so they've been the people that have helped me the most in my life, I think.
Now, I'm curious because you've done a lot. You are a multi-sport athlete. What has been your favorite athletic achievement so far?
Ooh, that one's a tie. It's funny because I had dreams of being an Olympian before I was an amputee, and all I've ever wanted to do was make it to the Olympics, Paralympics, and I've just been so close. But I was during my triathlon days, I won a national championship, and I'm the first person who will tell you I didn't win because I was the best guy competing at the time. I won because I was the best guy who showed up that day. And so my two rivals happened to not be able to make it that year. And I was by no means in first place. Had some trouble on the bike. My leg fell off. So I threw it in a bush. Actually, I threw it at a cop and said, "Can you just get this back to transition?" Never thought I'd see it again. And then I dug in and I came through a New York City triathlon at the time. And I caught up to the guy at the first mile of the run. And never looked back. And I ran my heart out, won a national championship. That was a lot of fun. But my boy Mark Barr, who's a 10 times better triathlete, I'll tell him it's because he wasn't there that day, but I'll still keep it for now. But my other big achievement, I think, athletics-wise, was I won the silver medal in the Para-Pan Am Games in Toronto that helped solidify. I was part of the team that helped solidify that entry into the 2016 Paralympic Games for the U.S. men's sitting volleyball team. And unfortunately, I didn't make the roster when it came to this 2016 roster. And we have phenomenal athletes on the team. I was a full-time employee at CAF. I couldn't sacrifice the time. But, it was really cool for me just to be a part of that the men's team hadn't been to a Games, I think, since Athens. So that was a really, really amazing personal accomplishment for me.
Awesome. So I heard a story that there was a little girl who wrote a letter to Santa Claus saying that she wanted to meet another amputee. You responded and you met her. My question is, what was that experience like, and do you still keep in touch with her?
So that story is pretty cute. It was actually a Facebook post that her mom had sent out into the interweb. And somebody forwarded it on to me, and it was really cute. She wrote it to Santa. She was from Northern California. And actually, the first thing I did is I got on the phone. I called a family I knew up there who had two young girls that were close to her age that were both adopted amputees. And so I kind of connected them first. And then we got the family to come down to the San Diego Triathlon Challenge later that year. And we surprised the young lady with her first athletic leg.
Aww.
And yeah, she was on stage. This is I think this is why I knew that we were meant to be soulmates. Is Ella Rodriguez is her name. She's a phenomenal athlete. She's an amazing young woman, and she was on stage. And I don't know why Bob Babbitt, who's one of our founders, asked her, when's your birthday? And she said it was February 27th. And I jumped out of nowhere, and I was like, that's my birthday. And I screamed it at the top of my lungs, and everybody stopped and looked at me like I was a crazy man. And I knew that Ella and I would be like this forever. And she's just a sweetheart. Her mom is phenomenal. Her whole family's great. But she's doing a ton with our high school adaptive sports program up in Northern California, getting other athletes involved, coaches. She's been a huge part of the program, did all the filming and the videos that we did, came down and did all that. So I still keep in touch with her multiple times a year. And just watching her grow into the young woman that she is from the little girl who wrote that letter to Santa has been amazing.
Such an amazing story. That just pulled my heart right out right there, big time. What motivates you? What keeps you going, being that you've accomplished so much?
It's funny because I'm in this weird place with retiring from everything last year. It just kind of all came together. Wasn't expecting it, but I have to find that kind of motivation now. And I started playing some beach volleyball. It's a new sport. It's adaptive. And, I want to see that get off the ground. And I think that's a couple of things motivate me. I want to help new sports find their voice. I'm on a board for international adaptive surfing. I used to surf a little when I was younger. I wish I'd surfed more living as close to the beach as I do. But, I try to help them because they want to get themselves in the Paralympics high level. And I've been through that with triathlon and being on the committees with triathlon. So it's about giving back. But the thing that I think motivates me the most, especially in the job that I do, because we're working for nonprofits, long hours, and you do a lot for a lot of people, and it's very rewarding in what it is, but it's not a regular job. And so, for me to do this, it's about seeing those young kids that we bring in and those new athletes that are adults and they get newly introduced to sports, and watching them thrive, watching them go through the process, and then turning around years later and seeing them as Paralympians or seeing them as coaches, and knowing that you had a small part in their journey really is the motivating factor for me. And watching, I got to tell you, I met a little kid, it's been probably 10 years, 12 years since I met him. And he was just a little guy. And then next thing I know, he was in the 2016 Paralympics as the youngest kid on the track and field team. So when you see stuff like that, you're like, all right, I'm doing what I should be doing. And you get rewarded by the other people's success stories.
So that basically took my next question. But besides Ella and the youngster that was the youngest in the Paralympics, what has been another success story that's near and dear to your heart?
I would say just outside of the adaptive community, in my years, I did 22 years of coaching. I say 22, I took 2 years off to lose a leg, but we won't count that. But in my 22 years, I learned a lot from my coach. And then when I took over coaching, I actually started up a women's program at the high school. And within a very short period of time, I was not only able to create a very successful girls program, I was able to get a state champion out of it with my heavyweight about 3 years ago. And just, as a coach, we come from a small inner city school. It's not, by any means, wrestling is not the popular sport. It was my alma mater, and to be able to coach someone all the way to the top level of high school sports was great, but also to do it in an emerging sport like women's wrestling was such a really just a life goal for me. And to be there and to do that and watch that young lady win that championship was something I always remember.
Such a cool story.
Incredible.
I think now, because we have had such, good conversation, I think people really want to hear about all the grants and any other questions that they may have for you. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to the audience.
All right, bring it on.
Come on, guys, don't be shy.
All right. I saw Emily's hands first, so we'll go with Emily.
Hey, Travis. I'm actually, sorry, Ricky. I had a weird experience a couple years ago when I went to CAF, and it was probably because it was right after my amputation. Anyway, I'm 53. I'm a right hip dysartic, and I don't know if there wasn't much going on or what happened, but what would you suggest for me? I'm trying to find my niche in the adaptive world. I was sent to, I tried the sled hockey, but because of my left leg, that didn't work out with the way that, anyway, just couldn't do that because of the issues with my left leg. And I've done a little bit of swimming with, oh my gosh, his name's going, but one of your guys.
Alan Voisard?
What?
Is it Coach Alan Voisard?
Alan, yes, he's awesome. He's so dear. So do you have any suggestions? Because I want to I'm right here in San Diego. I'm in Oceanside, and I really want to get involved. Where would you suggest to start if you don't really know what your sport is yet?
Yeah, we still count Oceanside as part of San Diego, don't worry. I would say, it's really a mixed bag. I mean, I understand being, you said hip dysartic, right?
Yeah, and I even tried sitting volleyball, but
it's a little harder. Yeah, I would say even just knowing, because I'm 6 inches from the hip joint, and so I'm pretty short as an AK, and even with my level, it's a little hard playing sitting volleyball, so I wouldn't even have suggested that for you just because sitting up and balancing is pretty hard. But you nailed it. Swimming is one of those ones I would absolutely say. I don't know how it is for you riding on a bike. I ride my bike up and down the coast every weekend. I actually ride to Oceanside every weekend, and I do it with one leg. I don't know how that is for you, but if that's a possibility, if not, you can hand cycle. They've got hand cycles that work. And then, there's a couple other things out there. Running is rough for hip dysarthritis, so I would kind of stay away from that. But there's archery. I think wheelchair basketball might be good. Say that again?
Boxing, anything like that?
They actually do wheelchair boxing, and I think there's a group that does that in San Diego County. I'll have to take a look. A lot of veterans do it. But, yeah, I mean, boxing, wheelchair boxing.
You're still at CAF downtown, right?
Yeah. Email me, travis@challengeathletes.org.
And maybe I can come down and take a look at it. So, and where do we go? Onto your website to look at everything that's being offered right now?
Yeah, and if you look on the resource pages under challengeathletes.org, there is actually a lot of information on what adaptive sports are available, links to all those different adaptive sports, and you can take a look at that, and that can help you kind of navigate yourself and what you're looking at. And if you've got any questions, email me. I'd love to help guide you to what you can do.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
No problem.
And then I saw Beth's hand go up. So Beth, you're up.
Hey Travis, how are you? Nice to meet you. I'm left below the knee with a lot of trauma in my upper thigh. So my question has to do with financials, and I know that you require them, and that makes sense. So my question is, when I do the financials, do I have to include my husband's financials in that with it?
I do believe that we ask for household financials, just because, there are some situations where you've got some people that are living by themselves, college student or whatever. But it by no means is something that's going to, go against you. We're trying to get the bigger picture of it all.
Okay.
But yeah, I think we do ask for household financials.
Yeah, because I'm on SSDI and I lost, 67% of my salary, and I was forced into retirement. So
and we keep that in mind. And I think there's a question also for extenuating circumstances. I think I said that.
Extenuating. There you go.
Yeah, that's what I meant. But it really asks if there's stuff that you can put in there that kind of lets us know a little bit more about your financial situation, because we do try to read all that and take into account everything that's going on. And some people, it doesn't say it, but they may have one or two dependents, and they may have adopted those kids that have disabilities, and that's an added expense. So things like that we always look at.
Okay, thank you so much.
No problem.
Any other questions from the crowd?
Yeah, I have one.
All right.
Hey, Travis. My name's Mike. I actually know Emily from out in California. I was out there. I really related to your story a lot. My mom was an addict for a very long time, and she actually passed away about 2 years ago from brain cancer. So the whole cancer thing and the addiction really related with. I've actually struggled with addiction myself for about 12 years. I've been clean for almost 18 months now.
Awesome.
And I just lost my leg back in July. And I'm currently trying to get out to Colorado so I can start training for the Paralympics, because I snowboard. I have since I was young. And I went to apply, and I didn't even realize that the date for the year had passed. Like, it was the beginning of this year, and because I was so recent to the amputation. I just want to know if there's other ways to go about other grants and other funding, because the financial situation is extremely rough. Kind of been dealing with like $30,000 in medical bills and everything else, and just like what I can do to best make my way out to Colorado, basically.
Yeah, are you trying to go this year?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I have,
well, here's the situation. So I would say that, you probably missed when you came into it. You missed the round. Our grant program, and we're looking at options to bring this to a year-round program someday. difficult with the way we do our fundraising and then kind of the fiscal year's timing. But we realize, like, if you come in after the application deadline, it's a whole long time until you can get back into it. But one of the things too is, like, October 1st is coming around the corner soon. So make sure you apply for this year for next year. No matter what, if you don't know what you need, think about it. Think about really what you could use and then apply for it. And then if things change, talk to us. We're really good about working with people. Obviously, if you don't need anything, let other people apply for it. But for a guy like you in your situation, apply. And, there are some other circumstances where we can help. One of the things I know, the climate of, like, right now, it's crazy with everything being canceled because of COVID. So who even knows what this end of this year looks like. So I do hope you're able to get to those camps. I will tell you, there's a bunch of other groups that are out there that do give grants. They're not as big as us in the sense that they don't give as much out, but seek them out. And then, there's hopefully some opportunities. Where do you live?
So I'm in Baltimore, Maryland.
Maryland?
And I was out in California for about 6 months last year. I went to rehab out there. And that's where I met Emily, actually, through she kind of lived, like, in the area, and I hadn't lost my leg yet, but I had an AFO and was in a wheelchair.
Well, we are trying to do some stuff on the East Coast. We have a couple regions. We have San Francisco Bay Area. We have the Northeast region, mostly kind of New York, New Jersey area, but we kind of expanding in a bigger area out there. And then Idaho as a state. We're trying to do some more winter stuff since Idaho's come along. Because winter stuff is a big deal there, and we have a dedicated person. We may have some opportunities. We are working closely with the USOPC. We actually just partnered with them on some Paranordic stuff. It's all being done out of Idaho. So I'm a huge snowboarder. I know how much that means. So email me offline. We'll see what we can do. If I can help you out or at least get you connected, I'd love to see if you get the chance to go do that stuff.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Yeah, I've been in contact with Alex Tuttle, and one of the guys that's on the U.S. team is Garrett Jarris, and me and him are possibly going to be roommates if everything works out. So
awesome. Well, I'll tell you what, man.
Appreciate it.
Snowboarding was the thing I missed the most. Being a wrestling coach, I've had to give up a lot of winters, but I'm looking forward to getting back at it. So maybe I'll see you out there on the mountain a couple times.
For sure.
Cool. Email me.
Hey, Travis, I have a question real quick.
Yeah.
You guys talked about your branch in Idaho. Do you know if you guys are going to be at the Limitless Challenge? I know that was a thing for a little bit, but I don't know if it's still going to continue or not. But if it is, do you guys plan to still be there?
You know what? I think Jen had that. Jen Skisik is she's a director of the Idaho region, and I think she had that on her calendar before COVID hit. So I think it's really dependent on what's going on there. But Idaho seems to be opening up a lot faster than everywhere else. So there's a good chance that we will be. Right now we got a couple challenge athletes doing an event called Smoke and Fire, which they're riding an unsupported mountain bike ride through the state of Idaho, and it's pretty amazing. So I will say that if it's opened up to be at, she'll probably be there representing the state.
Awesome. I look forward to seeing you guys there.
Yeah.
Awesome.
James.
Hey, Jordan.
Hey,
I have a question for you.
Not for James, for the guy.
For Travis.
What's your question?
So, have you done a lot of stuff with Jennifer in Idaho?
Say that first part again.
Have you done a lot of stuff with Jennifer in Idaho?
Have I done a lot of stuff with Jennifer in Idaho?
Yeah.
Personally, I've been up there a few times. I did. We did our first clinic was a WCMX clinic we did with the X Games. It was a qualifier, and it was really awesome. We brought up Aaron Fotheringham, who is pretty well known for doing all the wheelchair backflip stuff. And it was a blast. And so I've been up there. I've done that. One of the cool things about us starting a thing in Idaho is that I'm originally from Idaho. I was born in Pocatello, Idaho, so it's kind of like going back to my roots. And I'm going to be going up in the next month or so to be putting on a multi-sport clinic, hopefully, if we can make it happen. So I'm trying to get up there as often as I can, and I'm hoping to be up there a little bit more this winter.
Sweet.
Trandon's in Idaho.
Yes, I do. And I'm also the ambassador for Limitless.
Say that again. Sorry, my fan's a little loud here.
I said I'm the ambassador for Limitless.
Oh, okay.
That's why James asked you if you guys were going to be up at the Dell.
Yeah. Have you talked to Jen yet about that? Because I think she was planning on going.
I haven't talked to her about it. I've just talked to Ron about, I've just been talking to him about Limitless and stuff.
Yeah, hopefully I can make it up there. I'm trying to do more, just kind of seeing what's going on in that region. I love the area. So maybe you'll see me at that event as well.
Well, that would be great.
Yeah, I'd like it.
Thanks, Trandon.
Thanks, Trandon.
You're welcome.
Any other questions in the crowd? Gus got another one. You're muted. There you go.
Real quick, you mentioned something about the New England or the Northeast region. Does that include New Hampshire by any chance?
Yeah, you know what? It's actually kind of that whole area. We're not limiting the Northeast to kind of like a state. It's more of kind of that area over there. We've done a lot of stuff in Philly. We've done some stuff down in DC, and then up in Boston and up north. So just really trying to get everybody in that area. It's not like it's dedicated. Well, technically this year I was supposed to be putting on a bunch of events, and then COVID hit. Mm-hmm. So in the next year, we're probably going to start seeing more CAF programming happening, more clinics and camps in that area. We're looking to hopefully end up, I think we're going to be hiring an employee there for programming. So, you know, it's all going to start building up. We've done a lot of fundraising in New York City for, the last 12 years, and we're barely just starting to get to the point where we can do some programming. So, I mean, we've always done clinics, but they were based out of the San Diego office. Mm-hmm. So now it's going to be nice to really have some boots on the ground in the area. And I think we're going to start off, if we can do it this year, with a winter clinic of some sort.
Ooh, that'd be awesome. You know, there's a little organization that I run called Adaptively Abled Amputees and Adaptively Abled Fitness, and we would absolutely love to get more involved with challenged athletes. So absolutely, if you guys have the programming ready, you know who to reach out to.
I got you marked down. I think Emily's got one more question.
Yeah, I was just wondering, you mentioned programs and clinics. I was just wondering what the difference was, and are the clinics something that I can get involved with here in San Diego?
Yeah, and when I say programs, we don't run ongoing programming. We usually leave that to the adaptive sports groups or adaptive sports organizations that we partner with. Down in San Diego, we've got ASRA, Adaptive Sports and Recreation Association, I believe is their acronym. What it stands for, and they're a great group here in San Diego you can get involved with. But what we do when we say programming, we mean our one-day clinics or our multi-day camps that we put on. A lot of our camps in San Diego tend to be youth camps, like our youth surf camp. We do a youth para-tri camp, but we also do an adult para-tri camp, as well as all of our clinics that we do around the San Diego Triathlon Challenge, wheelchair tennis. We've done cycling. We've done OSA run clinics, open water swimming, surfing. So we do a lot of stuff locally, but then we do all of our OSA clinics around the United States, as well as swimming clinics.
And if you haven't gone to one of the running clinics, I highly, highly suggest it. I met Travis several years ago, and I had a leg that was really not meant for running. And I was in the Boston Athletic Center when I completely face planted in front of everybody there. And representatives from Challenge Athletes and OSER ushered me over to their table and encouraged me, sorry for my dog, sorry about that, the joys of working remote, ushered me over, and I put in a grant for a running blade. And it was receiving that running blade from Challenge Athletes that really started my own personal fitness journey. soon as I received it, I put in an application to go down to ATF because I wanted to learn how to use my new blade. And it's kind of history from there. So their grants are absolutely life-changing. Their clinics expose people to things that maybe they never tried before or things that they want to get involved in again. And Challenge Athletes has had a significant impact in my life and my story and countless others. So if you haven't applied, if you haven't attended a clinic, please do.
Yeah, and I would second that. With the OSER mobility clinics aren't just about running. We get so many people there that just want to learn how to use what they're wearing every day and be more mobile in it. And I tell you, man, it's worth it to come and just understand how to run or move a little bit faster in your prosthetic, because you never know when you got to get that giddy up across the street or, whatever. And it makes a difference. We've got two of the best coaches in the world as far as I'm concerned. Dr. Robert Gailey is so phenomenal in what he does, and he's been doing it for so long that he's worth the drive. And that's why we don't even have to ask for volunteers. They just show up because they hear he's going to be there. And we get these PT students from all over the country that come. So they're phenomenal. Our clinics are phenomenal. Melissa, thank you. You kind of plugged it perfectly. So, apply for a grant, come out to one of our camps or clinics. And, I look forward to meeting everybody and hearing stories.
And I put your email address in the chat, but other ways to connect with you and get involved?
Yeah, you can email programs@challengeathletes.org. That's my whole team. Everybody takes a look at that, and we kind of give it up to whoever is the best at responding. Looking at our resource pages, we've got some great stuff under the Community Challenge right now to help. We're doing some yoga, adaptive yoga that's going to be really cool. We've got one of my friends, Emily, is doing the upper extremity stuff. My friend Tara, who's a below-the-knee amputee, is going to be doing that. We've even got seated yoga that's going to be happening as well. So there's a lot of really cool stuff that we're trying to do between now and when we can get back into person. So check the website, email me if you got questions, and I'll do my best to give you some good answers.
Well, we can't thank you enough for coming on tonight. Wealth of information. What an inspirational story. So I think that wraps up episode 12 of the Adaptive Collaborative podcast. It also wraps up season 1 of the Adaptive Collaborative podcast. So we are post-editing, and fingers crossed if the stars align, we are hoping to release the first 12 episodes a week from Friday. We will be sending out little teaser videos with highlights from each of the previously recorded episodes. And we're looking forward to launch those on iTunes, on Spotify, and on YouTube. And we'll be taking a week off next week. I finally need a vacation, and I am going to unplug for a week. But then we'll be back on the following Tuesday, September 22nd, we're starting off the season with a bang with the one and the only David Vibera, my personal mentor and coach, and the founder of the Adaptive Training Foundation in Dallas, Texas. And we're looking forward to seeing you all then. Want to thank my co-host James for his stellar performance as always. For Travis for spending the night with us, sharing your story and information about challenged athletes. And this podcast wouldn't be possible without all of our listeners. So thank you again for joining us and supporting us. Please help to continue to spread the word. And we hope to see you all soon.
Thanks, Melissa.
Thanks for having me, everybody.
Thank
you, everyone involved. You guys all rock. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, James. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Travis.
And we're so excited to see so many new faces tonight. So help spread the word and continue to attend.
Have a great night.
Bye, guys.
See you guys. Peace.